Imagine a courtroom scene where a corpse is the defendant. Sounds like a horror movie, right? But this actually happened in history. But before we dive in, make sure to hit the subscribe button for more fascinating stories from history. Now picture this. The year is 897. The setting? Rome, in the heart of an era where the church was the ultimate authority. A peculiar court case is about to take center stage, one that would be forever etched in the annals of history as the Cadaver Synod. The key players in this dramatic spectacle? Pope Stephen VI, the zealous prosecutor, and Pope Formosus, the defendant. But there's a twist. Formosus is not just any defendant, he's a deceased one. Intrigued? You should be. Because beneath this macabre event lie layers of political maneuvering and religious tension. A plot so complex it could rival any modern thriller. Stay tuned to learn more about this bizarre chapter of history. You wouldn't want to miss it. Let's rewind a bit. Who was this Pope Formosus and why was his corpse put on trial? To understand the story, we need to journey back to the 9th century, a tumultuous time for the papacy. In this period of shifting power and political intrigue, Pope Formosus ascends to the throne of St. Peter. A man of conviction, Formosus was known for his strong missionary zeal, particularly towards the Bulgarians, and his efforts to convert them to Christianity. His papacy, however, was not without controversy. Formosus made a series of decisions that ruffled feathers within the church and the broader political landscape. One such decision was his support for the Carolingian family, a powerful Frankish dynasty, over the native Italian aristocracy. This didn't sit well with many, creating a rift that would have long-lasting implications. To make matters more complex, the political climate of the time was a veritable powder keg. The church was caught in the crossfire of various warring Italian factions, each vying for power and influence. Formosus, whether by choice or circumstance, became entangled in these power struggles, further deepening the divisions within the church and the Roman nobility. One of his most contentious acts was the crowning of Lambert of Spoleto as co-emperor. This move was seen by many as a clear demonstration of his political leanings, and it ignited a firestorm of controversy. Accusations of perjury, ambition, and even heresy started to swirl around the pope. Then, in April of 896, Formosus died, leaving behind a legacy fraught with tension and discord. His death, however, would not be the end of his story. In a twist of fate, his actions while alive would continue to haunt the church, culminating in an event as bizarre as it was appalling. Formosus's actions stirred the pot, setting the stage for a posthumous trial that would shock the world. Enter Pope Stephen VI, the man who would bring Formosus to trial. But what led him to such an extreme decision? Let's delve into the heart of this narrative, marked by ambition, power, and an insatiable thirst for control. Stephen VI ascended to the papacy in the late 9th century, a time of turbulence and transition within the church. The son of a Roman noble, Stephen was no stranger to the intricate dance of politics and power. His rise to the top was as much a product of his lineage as it was his cunning and charisma. His relationship with Pope Formosus was complicated, to say the least. Formosus, his predecessor, was a respected figure in the church, but not without his share of enemies. Among them, Stephen VI was perhaps the most formidable. A bitter rivalry brewed between the two, their opposing ideologies and visions for the church clashing like thunder and lightning. Stephen VI was a staunch traditionalist, a stickler for the rules. He believed in a rigid, hierarchical church that held tightly to its ancient customs and traditions. Formosus, on the other hand, was seen as a reformer, a progressive force that threatened to upset the established order. The tension between the two was palpable, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. As Pope, Stephen VI found himself in a position of immense power and influence. Yet, he was tormented by the shadow of Formosus, his legacy looming large over the church. It was this internal struggle, this fierce desire to assert his authority and eliminate all traces of Formosus, that would lead Stephen VI down a path of unthinkable extremes. The church was rife with internal power struggles and political maneuvering. Stephen VI's reign was marked by a growing sense of unease and uncertainty. His motivations, driven by ambition and a deep-seated resentment for Formosus, set the stage for one of the most bizarre chapters in the history of the papacy. With the stage set, the most unusual trial in history was about to begin. Now, we reach the main event, the Cadaver Synod. The courtroom was ready, the defendant was, well, dead, and the trial was about to begin. In a scene that was more macabre theater than legal proceeding, the corpse of Pope Formosus was exhumed and dressed in papal vestments. propped up on a throne, the late Pope was subjected to an interrogation led by none other than Pope Stephen VI himself. The charges? Perjury, coveting the papacy, and violating church canons by transferring bishoprics. Stephen VI, driven by a deep-seated enmity towards Formosus, appointed a deacon to speak for the silent defendant. However, unsurprisingly, the deacon's responses did little to defend the deceased pope. The trial was a one-sided affair, and the verdict was a foregone conclusion. Formosus was found guilty on all counts. His papacy was declared invalid, his ordinations annulled, and the 3 fingers he used for blessings were hacked off his corpse. But let's not forget about the audience in this grotesque spectacle. The reactions were as divided as they were strong. The public, aghast at the spectacle, began to question the sanity of Stephen VI. The church, too, was split. Many clerics were horrified by the trial, viewing it as a desecration. Yet, there were those who supported Stephen VI, believing that Formosus had indeed violated church law. Even in the face of widespread criticism, Stephen VI showed no remorse. He ordered Formosus's body to be dumped in the Tiber River, an act that only further ignited public outrage. The Cadaver Synod wasn't just a trial, it was a spectacle that embodied the political and spiritual turmoil of the time. The Cadaver Synod was a shocking event that shook the foundations of the church. But before we dive into its implications, don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing historical narratives. The Cadaver Synod was more than just a bizarre event, it had far-reaching implications. The trial of a deceased pope, a spectacle of the macabre, left an indelible mark on the annals of history, sending ripples through the corridors of power and the masses alike. Let's start with the immediate aftermath. Public reaction to the Cadaver Synod was one of shock and horror. The spectacle of a deceased pope being put on trial, dressed in papal regalia and then desecrated, was a sight that left a deep and lasting impression on the people of Rome. Many saw it as a sacrilegious act, a violation of the sanctity of death, and a disgrace to the Church. The fate of Pope Stephen VI, the orchestrator of this grotesque spectacle, was equally grim. The public backlash was swift and severe. Stephen VI was deposed, imprisoned, and eventually strangled to death in his cell in the late summer of 897, mere months after the Cadaver Synod. His violent end served as a stark reminder of the volatile nature of power and the dangers of overreach. But the implications of the Cadaver Synod extended far beyond the fate of a single pope. The Church itself was deeply impacted by this event. The Cadaver Synod highlighted the political nature of the papacy, exposing the bitter rivalries and power struggles that often lurked behind the scenes. It served as a wake-up call, leading to reforms aimed at curbing such abuses of power. The Cadaver Synod also had long-term implications for church politics. It set a disturbing precedent, showing that even death was no barrier to political retribution. This realization had a chilling effect on the Church, promoting caution and self-preservation among its ranks. And yet, despite its dark and disturbing nature, the Cadaver Synod has secured its place in history. It serves as a stark reminder of the extremes people can go to in their quest for power, a testament to the destructive potential of unchecked ambition. It's a story that continues to fascinate, horrify, and intrigue, centuries after it unfolded. The Cadaver Synod also serves as a cautionary tale, a warning about the dangers of allowing power and politics to overshadow principles and humanity. It's a lesson that still resonates today, making the Cadaver Synod not just a historical curiosity, but a relevant and timely reminder. The Cadaver Synod remains one of the most shocking events in history, a testament to the lengths people will go to in the pursuit of power. If you enjoyed this historical deep dive, don't forget to subscribe for more. Until next time, keep exploring history in all its bizarre and fascinating detail.